So yesterday we did word problems. Today we are going to do word problems with two right triangles. So in this picture there are two right triangles. Can you separate them and label them? So easy one is this triangle right here. Oh, of course. Okay. Easy one is this triangle right here. So in this triangle is 90 degrees and 60 degrees, and then if I wanted to find that top angle, 90 plus 60, subtract that from 180, that would give me 30 degrees. So here it's my right angle, then I have 60 degrees, and then I have 50 here. So my second triangle though, it has to be a right triangle. So I'm going to start with this side here, and then if I'm using that, it would have to be this big triangle. So here's my big triangle. If you notice, it's the one where it's 30 degrees, and then it also has the side length of 50. So that 60 degrees that's in my yellow triangle isn't really in this triangle. Okay, I'm going to just shrink it down a little bit. So this one is 50, and then this bottom one is 30, and this is 90 degrees, okay? So there's two right triangles in here. Well, we know all about this unit is just our sine, cosine, and tangent of right triangles. So today we're going to solve word problems where there's two right triangles in it and see how we can solve for x by using two trig functions. So this time we're going to have to use two trig functions instead of one, like you did yesterday. So let's start with the first problem. Adam and Brian are standing some distance apart on the same side of a building, 50 meters tall. From where Adam stands, the angle of elevation of the top of the building is 30 degrees. From where Brian stands, the angle is 60 degrees. Find the value of x, the distance between Adam and Brian, to the nearest tenth of a meter. So Adam is where the 30 degrees is. Here's Adam. Brian is at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate my triangles again. We're trying to come up with what that x value is. So I know I have one right triangle with Brian as my point. So here's my right angle. Brian was here, 60 degrees, 50 meters. Then there's another triangle where Adam is now the point. So Adam's over here. It's 30 degrees. Here's my right angle. Here's 50. But Brian's like standing here. So it wants to know the length of this part. Well, what do you think? So let's focus in on this little triangle here. This little triangle, if I'm trying to find this pink length on the bottom, what side do you think I should solve for in my little triangle that would help me? So I'm going to solve for y. So if I solve for y, that means I can know the distance from Brian to the building. So that would be my y part, okay? So in this triangle, I'm going to solve for y. Well, with any triangle, we have to label our sides. So across my right angle is my hypotenuse. Across from 60 degrees is my opposite. And then next to 60 degrees is my adjacent. So if I write my SOHCAHTOA, I see that I have my opposite side with a number on it and my adjacent side with my y on it. So I'm going to star both opposite and adjacent. So opposite is O, adjacent is A. The trig function with two stars wins, so I get tangent. So we're going to do tangent of my angle equals opposite over adjacent. Well, my angle is 60 degrees, so opposite is 50, adjacent is y. So now from this point, remember that you have to put tangent of 60 over 1 so you can cross multiply. So we get y tangent 60 equals 50. To get y alone now, you have to divide by tan 60 on both sides. So now in your calculator, 50 divided by, and then in parentheses, tan 60. Make sure your calculator's in degree mode or else you're not going to get the right answer. And we get 28.8675. So I suggest you always write out 4 decimal places in this. Typically, don't round at all because that's how you're going to get the most exact value, okay? But since it says the meter, I would just go an extra 4. So that means that this length right here is, from here to here, is 28.8675. So I solved my small triangle as much as I could. So I'm going to move on to the other triangle. So I know my green length is 28.8675. I know I need to figure out my pink length, but I can't take half. We don't even know if it's half of the bottom just to solve for the other side, x, using a trig identity. So what we have to do is we have to solve for this whole bottom now. So I'm going to call it z. So remember, the pink was your x, the blue we just solved for, that's your y, and now we're going to solve for z. So using that, I'm going to label my triangle again. Across from my right angle is my hypotenuse. Across from 30 degrees is my opposite. And then next to my 30 degrees is my adjacent. So now I'm going to write out my SOHCAHTOA. And I have to decide what trig function am I going to use. So if I look here, I notice that on the opposite side, I have 50 degrees. And then my adjacent is the one I'm solving for. So I'm going to use opposite and adjacent. So anywhere I see an O, I'm going to put a star. Anywhere where I see an A, I'm going to put a star. And then I realize I'm using tangent. So it's going to be tan 30 equals my opposite, which is 50, my adjacent, which is my z. So again, I have a whole number equal to a fraction. So I have to put the whole number over 1 so I can cross multiply. So I get z tan 30 equals 50. Now to get z alone, you're going to divide by tangent of 30 on both sides. So tan 30 divided by tan 30 is just 1. So in my calculator now, you're going to do 50 divided by, put it in parentheses, tan 30. And you get 86.6025. So now what I have, if I'm just going to focus on this bottom line right here, so just this part, I'm just going to redraw it so it's not as messy. So I know this is Adam, this is Brian, this is the building. So we just figured out this whole length is 86.6025. We knew that Brian to the building was 28.8675, and we're trying to figure out how far away Adam is from Brian. So if I set that up in an equation, let's say, it would be x plus 28.8675 equals 86.6025. So to get x alone, you would subtract. So 86.6025 minus 28.8675 would give you 57.735. So it said round to the nearest meter, so it's actually 58 meters. So Adam and Brian are 58 meters away. So the most important thing to remember about these types of problems is you need to separate your triangles. You need to double check that all your information and the given information is labeled correctly. So like I said, these types of problems, you're going to have to do two trig functions. So one was in green, that's the first one. We solved for y there. Then in orange, we solved for z. After you figure out both of those, all you have to do is subtract them to get x. So what I want you to do is I want you to try these next problems, keeping that in mind. So separate your triangles, label them, and then solve for the missing information.